don't shoot me, shoot him. He said, sorry, Mom and Dad, it's time to die. From what I have seen, it looked like a Glock 17, 9mm with an extended magazine. But when I was shot, I knew that I wasn't taken back, so I kept going. I moved tactically on him. For a split second in my mind, I thought this was surreal. I didn't think this was that this was real. But as I seen the firearm, I jumped out of my chair, my recliner, and while he was still in a sitting position on the couch, when he drew the firearm, as I was going towards him, I took the firearm.
Raise your right hand for me. Swear affirm, tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
Yes, sir.
Right over here. Have a seat. Right there. Is there a chair there?
No, sir.
You're the first witness. You're the first witness in the new courtroom. Dan will move a chair for you. Thank you, sir. Mr. Lawrence, your witness.
All right, thank you very much. May he be seated?
Sure, have a seat.
Thank you, Your Honor.
He's been sworn in, Judge.
And I apologize, Judge. I just wanted to confirm that because of the limitations in the courthouse, that we are indeed, the courthouse is open by YouTube. Is the
Correct.
the proceedings are being streamed?
Well, we're supposed to. We're live now.
Understood. Thank you, Judge.
All right, see this. All right, sir, would you please state your name for the record?
Victor William Carvelis II.
And what was the name of your wife?
Julie B. Carvelis.
Mr. Carvelis, are you familiar with the address 38027 Judd Road in New Boston, Michigan?
Yes,
And what is at that address?
that's where my wife and I resided.
Sorry, guys. New equipment.
Mr. Carvelis, I want to ask you about February 26th, 2021. Do you remember that date?
Yes,
Do you have a son that's in this courtroom?
could you repeat that?
Do you have a son that's in this courtroom?
Yes,
What is his name?
Kalen Christian Carvelis.
And can you point him out to the court? And what color is the clothing he's wearing?
Clothing that he is wearing looks like a green shirt with a white t-shirt underneath with a mask on his face.
Judge, for the record, the witness has identified the defendant. Is it this
Noted.
way? Mr. Carvelis, when on February 26, 2021, did you first see your son?
At 2:30 a.m. in the morning,
And where did you see him?
outside of my home.
And how did you know he was outside your home?
My dog started barking. I heard a knock at the door. And when I answered the door, he was standing outside of my home.
Did you go outside the home with him?
No.
Did you have a conversation with him at that time?
Yes.
And what did you tell him?
I said, come back in the morning and your mother and I will talk to you then. I'm too tired right now.
Did he leave after that?
Yes.
When was the next time that you saw him?
At 7:20 to 7:30 a.m. on February the 26th.
And how did you come to know that he was there at that time?
Because
Where did you see him then? At 7:30.
at 7:30 he was in my home at that time.
So he came back to the house?
He came back to the house prior to that.
Did you let him into the house?
No.
Tell the court about what it is that you're talking about now.
At 7 a.m. I was woken up. My dog was barking. I didn't hear a knock at the door, but I knew my dog was barking for somebody that must have been outside. So I went downstairs. I looked on my cameras, and as I went downstairs, I didn't see nobody at my front door. So I seen Kalen go around the corner, and I yelled out, "Kay, come on back." He must not have heard me because he kept on walking. And at that time, I came back in the house and I woke my wife up.
And then is there a third time where you see your son on that morning?
Yes.
Tell the court, when was that?
After I woke my wife up, I said, I'm going to go over next door to my mother's house because Cameron went back over there and I was going to go get him, have him come back over to the house to sit and talk with us. And that's exactly what I did. My wife got up. I asked her to make a pot of coffee. I went over to my mother's house, and that's where I seen Kalen.
Does he live at that house?
Yes,
And so you saw him next door to your house at your mother's house. Did you talk to him then?
yes.
And what did you say?
I said, son, if you'd like to come over back to the house, your mother and I would like to talk to you now.
Did he come over to your house?
Yes.
How did you walk into the house?
We walked in through my sliding glass door on the back of my deck.
Once inside the house, where did you go?
I went immediately to my recliner that sits along my wall of my stairwell,
Is this in a particular room?
the living room.
Where was your wife at this time?
My wife was in the kitchen making coffee.
Where was Kalen at this time?
Kalen went ahead and sat down on our couch by our picture bay window in the living room.
And do you have a conversation with him at this time?
Yes,
What are you talking about?
I was talking about his trip to California, and I was talking to him about if he was going back out there.
Does there come a point in time when your wife enters the living room?
Yes, after she made me a cup of coffee and her cup of coffee, she sat down in her recliner that was connected to mine along the stairwell in my living room.
So at this point in time, you, your wife, and Kalen are all in the living room?
Yes,
Is there anybody else in the house?
no,
Does your wife join the conversation?
throughout the conversation, she did mention a few things. She was glad that Kalen came over to talk.
How long did this conversation go on for?
This conversation went on roughly between 10 to 15 minutes.
Judge, can we approach her briefly? Just need
Sure.
to- Just this. I just wanted to. Mention this before we got called today, but the jail has 35 COVID-19.
Yeah, I'll make sure they know.
Yeah. Thank you, Judge.
Mr. Carvelis, am I saying the name right? Or Carvelis?
That's correct.
Mr. Carvelis, while this conversation is going on in the living room, how would you describe the tone of the conversation?
The tone of the conversation was a little bit uneasy because there was questions that were being asked to me that I wasn't at liberty to say anything because where I work in Belleville.
any party being aggressive or threatening in this conversation?
No.
All right, then tell the court what happens next.
As we were sitting there talking to Kalen, he asked us several questions about sex trafficking and different questions about pedophilia, if that went on in the area. And then the question was asked, I said to him, are you going to move out to California? Because I kind of wanted to switch the conversation up because I didn't want to have a conversation about that because there's no reason to it. It's ugly. And I said to him, are you going to move out to California? And he didn't say he was going to move out there. He just sat there and I was watching his body language.
And what happens next?
I started thinking my son would never do anything to hurt his mother and father. And I was watching his body language, how he was positioning himself, and being in law enforcement and being an instructor, I knew something just wasn't quite right. But I thought, this is my son. He would never hurt his mother and I. He loves us.
Did you say anything or did you just continue observing?
I continue observing while we were talking.
What happens next?
At that point, Campbell went ahead and took control of the conversation. And at that time, that's when the whole thing changed.
And what changed about it, sir?
At that time, he was reaching with his left hand into his hip, sitting on a couch. And as he was drawing a firearm from his left side of his hip with his left hand, he didn't scream out, he didn't yell out, but he spoke out and he said, sorry, Mom and Dad, it's time to die.
What kind of a gun was this?
From what I have seen, it looked like a Glock 17, 9mm with an extended magazine.
And I would just object to the base of knowledge seems to be coming, the base of knowledge seems to be coming from after he made the observation. He said, from what I have seen. So I just have to clarify.
What was it, a handgun, sir?
It was a handgun.
And what did Kalen do with this handgun?
At this time, he drew the firearm, he pointed in my direction and my wife's direction. Before he could get it online, I already moved on him and I was shot. But when I was shot, I knew that I wasn't taken back, so I kept going.
Okay, hold on 1 second, let me break that down. When you say you moved on him, what does that mean?
I moved tactically on him. For a split second in my mind, I thought this was surreal. I didn't think this was that this was real. But as I seen the firearm, I jumped out of my chair, my recliner, and while he was still in a sitting position on the couch, when he drew the firearm, as I was going towards him, I took the firearm offline, and that's when he shot me in the shoulder. And I kept on going. I felt a burning sensation.
What do you mean you took the firearm offline?
In any type of self-defense, we can't a weapon. In combative fighting of Krav Maga, I teach combative defense. And when you can't a firearm, you take it offline where the projectile is not going to hit a vital area. So when I took the firearm offline, it was pointed at my head. But for the time of reaction, when I took it offline, it hit me in the shoulder.
Okay, did you have to physically have contact with Kalen in order to perform this maneuver?
Yes.
And so what is it that you did to him to take it offline?
I took my right hand and my left hand. As he drove the firearm with this left hand, I took it up in a clamshell position. I cut the firearm, and when I took it offline, that's when he pulled the trigger. So would you like me to demonstrate right here in the chair for the purpose of the court, for a visual?
Up to you.
That's fine.
The firearm comes up, you grab, and you take it offline. As soon as it's here, you move your head, and you take the firearm offline so the projectile goes past you or off to the side. But at this time, Kalen was in a position where he was on the couch, so he was pointing up. And when I took it offline, and I was like this, the projectile went through my shoulder.
Your right shoulder?
It went through my right shoulder.
Having been shot, what happens next?
At that split moment, I thought to myself, I didn't go back. I'm going to keep going. This needs to be under control.
So what do you do next?
At that point, I was trying to talk my son down. I pinned the gun against the couch that he was sitting on where his left hand was. Then he reached over
And did what, sir?
with his right hand and he said, "You have to die. You have to die."
Where is your wife during all of this?
My wife was sitting on the couch, her recliner.
To this point in time, had she been shot?
No,
So you have which hand of his is holding the gun on the couch?
the left.
And you have it pinned down?
I had this firearm pinned down against the couch.
And did he, you said that he said some words about you have to die. What did you say he was doing with his right hand?
He reached over with his right hand to grab the firearm to start struggling with me to get control of the firearm again.
What happens next?
At that point in time, my wife thought she can intervene and help talk my son down as well. But as she got in the line of fire, he pulled the trigger and he shot my wife.
After your wife was, in that immediate moment, after your wife was shot, did you see what happened to her?
I seen my wife, as soon as he pulled the trigger and shot her, because of my training, I took my index finger, as he suppressed the trigger and shot her, I still had the gun, and he had the gun. And I took my index finger and I put it inside the trigger guard and I suppressed his finger against the trigger so it couldn't reset, because I knew that there was another round in the chamber. And if he would have got control of the gun again, it would have been.
So you have got some form of control on the weapon at this point in time, or at least you're influencing the situation. What happens next?
At this point, I'm still trying to talk him down. I'm saying, "You shot your mother. You shot my wife. We love you." And at this time, we're struggling. He's saying, "Your blood is required. You need to die. You just need to die."
What happens next?
At this point, we were struggling with the firearm. Then I get him in a position, and he got me in a position where my back is on his stomach on the couch, and I took the firearm with my right hand and my left hand, and I broke it away almost from his left hand because his right hand was free now. He wrapped his legs around my waist. He took his left leg and he kicked the gun out of my hand. And at that time, I thought, good, the gun is away. Then this will just be a struggling match between him and I. And at this point, there was a knife laying next to my right thigh. I picked the knife up and I thought about opening it up and striking my son with it, but I didn't because he's my son.
Let me stop you for 1 second. Had you seen this knife before?
Have I?
Yeah.
No.
Did you know how it is that it got there next to you and Kaylin?
No.
What kind of a knife was it?
It was a 6-inch lock blade, serrated edges. It looked like it was pearl handle.
And did you pick it up or no?
At that point in time, no. He put me in what's called a reverse chokehold.
Who's underneath?
Kaylin,
Who's on top?
I am.
And is it back to stomach?
My back is to his stomach.
What happens next?
His legs are wrapped around me. He took his arm, put it across my acrotic arteries and my larynx. He started squeezing, and he said, "You need to die. You just need to bleed out and die. You need to go be with mom. Just die." And at this moment, we were wrestling around for probably about maybe 5 to 10 minutes with the firearm. So I was totally exhausted. And the only thing I could do was go back to my tactical training of what I taught for rear naked chokes, but I couldn't get enough leverage because we're on the couch and I couldn't leverage back. So I pulled his arm down and I yelled out, because of my faith in my Lord and Savior, I said, "Jesus, give me the strength. Send me your angels."
And what happens next?
And at that time, next thing I know, we're on the ground. He's on top of me. He has that knife that I previously had in my hand, and I sat down. He picked it up, opened it up. He sat on my stomach, and I had my left hand on his chest because he had the knife in his right hand. And I asked him, "Can I have some water?" And he said, "No, just bleed out and die. You need to die. Your blood is required."
And this is all on the ground by the couch in the living room.
This is all on the ground by the couch in the living room where my wife's body laid away from me.
He's on top of you and he has the knife. What happens next?
He says, "I'm not going to stab you. I want you to just bleed out and die. Just die." And I looked at him at that time and I said, "Son, I forgive you. I forgive you. Just let me go lay next to your mother. If I'm going to die, let me go lay next to my wife."
What happens next?
At that point, we struggled. Then he finally got off of me, but he said, "You better not do anything else." So he had the knife in his hand still, and I went over by my wife. I touched her body. It was lukewarm. And at this point, I knew in my mind that I needed to get her help right away. And I said to him, "Take me. Get an ambulance for your mother. Take me. But save your mother." And at this point, he said, "You just need to die. Just die."
And you're by your wife. Your son is saying this to you. He has the knife. What do you do next?
At this point, I started thinking strategically what I can do because I knew I needed to get my wife help because I knew he wasn't going to be merciful at all because of look in his eye.
So what is it you did?
I went ahead and tried to stand up in a tactical fashion. He threw a kick and it knocked me back down, but then I jumped back up and he threw another kick and I buckled my knee so his front foot with the ball of his foot would slip off and he lost his balance and went flying into my front closet. And I reached behind me and I opened up my front door and I ran out the front door and I started yelling, "Help, police, someone call 911." And I'm yelling this at the top of my lungs where it would echo down the street. And I knew eventually somebody would call 911.
Is it light outside at this time?
It's light outside at this time.
And this is in your front yard area?
Yes.
So you're yelling for help. What happens next?
As I ran across my front yard into my driveway, the thought went through my mind quickly, he can catch up to me. If I run down the road, I'll be exhausted, and then he'll be able to do whatever he wants, hack me up, cut me up. But then I thought differently.
And what is it you thought to do?
My neighbor across the street had a recycling bin, a big yellow and green recycling bin against his garage, and I ran over there and I positioned that recycling bin between Kalen and myself, and I put my back against that garage so I knew he couldn't get behind me, and I kept him at bay.
What property are you on? Your property or your neighbor's property?
My neighbor's property.
And so is this the same neighbor that you got the recycling bin from?
Yes.
And can you tell the court, when did you see Kalen come outside?
Soon as I had the recycling bin and I flipped it around, he was about 2 paces behind me, maybe 3 paces.
Is this the first time that you noticed him outside?
This is the first time I noticed him outside.
And what was he doing?
He was coming towards me with that knife.
And was the blade drawn?
The blade was drawn.
And what did you do at this point?
I continued to scream, "Help, call 911, police." I continued to scream that because I knew at this point that was my only life preserver because I only knew I could fight him off for so long with that recycling bin.
Did he do anything with the knife while engaging you with this recycling bin between the two of you?
He stood there and he was contemplating how he can get to me because he knew of my training as well. And then he took the knife in his right hand and he tried to shut me up by sticking it in my throat. But as soon as he went to go stick it in my throat, I took the recycling bin and I pushed it into his shins, and it must have broke his balance, and I got my head out of the way and it struck my left side of my clavicle and my shoulder.
And can you point to where that is? And so that's where you suffered a stab wound or a striking wound from a knife?
Yes.
Did the knife Did he stab you anywhere else with the knife?
No.
What happens next?
At that time, after I knew I was struck, I knew I still had to keep the recycling bin between Kaylin and myself. And at that point, that's where Officer Jackson, my neighbor across the street, where I was leaning on his garage, came outside.
Did he have a weapon with him?
Officer Jackson did have a weapon with him.
What kind of a weapon?
It was a handgun.
Oh, did he approach you?
Could you repeat that
Did
question?
Officer Jackson approach where you and Kaylin were?
Yes.
And what happens next?
At that point, I heard Officer Jackson say 3 words: drop the knife, get down on your knees, and put your hands on your head. And at that point, I just had a sigh of relief, and I said, thank you, Lord.
Did you observe Kaylin comply?
Kaylin was being compliant, but non-compliant.
What do you mean by that?
He went down on his knees, but I do believe that my neighbor, Al, told him to get down on the ground. He refused to get down on the ground, but he did have his hands on his head. But then I could see that Kaylin was contemplating.